Yo, what's up, guys? We're back at the fort for another 1-2 session. Went for 300. This session was really crazy. I have overpairs that get raised multiple times. I'm all in pre-flop for hundreds of big blinds 3 times, and I have a guy show me pocket aces and beg me to run it twice. So it's a good one. Also, a couple housekeeping things. We're close to 500 subscribers. Please help me get there. If you sub, like, and comment, it really helps the channel. Really appreciate it. And lastly, I don't think I've ever went over my upload schedule with you guys. It's Wednesday and Saturday at 1 Eastern from now forward for the next month. That's definitely what it's going to be. Enough of that. Let's get into the vlog. This is the very first hand we sit down. I started recording around the turn because, as I said, I got dealt in as I was sitting down, so I kind of missed the beginning. I was in the cutoff with pocket 10s. I opened a 15, and the low jack was the only caller. The flop is 5, 7, 9 with 2 hearts, so we flop an overpair with pocket 10s. The low jack checks it to me. I bet out for 12, close to third pot, and he check raises to 35. Our very first hand, we flop an overpair and get check raised. I think this is a spot where we're either way ahead or way behind. If he's got a draw, let's just let him keep barreling into me. So I call. The turn is the queen of spades. Not a great card. I don't think he has many queens in our range, but obviously now we no longer have an overpair. Now the low jack leads into me for 75. This guy, let's just call him John. Obviously, I know nothing about him at this point. This is only my 3rd time at the fort. But boy, this guy is going to feature in this vlog. He was honestly just a pleasure to play with. Tons of action. It was a great guy. I love playing with him. But at this point, I don't know much about him. And I actually tell him that I'm going to give him a lot of credit. Because on the flop, it was a massive fold. Now we just have second pair. And do I really want to be going to, my entire stack in the middle right now with second pair? So I end up folding. And he shows 7, 9 offsuit, so he flopped top 2 pair on his heads up. Next hand, we look down at Jack 9 of diamonds from the big blind. There's a button open to 15. I call the small blind and under the gun calls. The flop is 10 queen ace. We flop an open ender. It checks to the button. He continues for 20. I go ahead and call. We're getting a good price here, and under the gun also calls. The turn is the 3 of hearts. No help to us. There was a diamond on the flop, so I was hoping that we might turn a diamond flush draw as well, but we don't. When it checks to the button, he now bets for 75. This is definitely a spot where raising on the flop made no sense because this smashes the button's opening range. And then here, again, we just have no fold equity. So I think it's a real shame to let this one go, but I think we have to let it go because we're only going to get there about 1 in 5 times. And sure enough, when we all fold, the button shows ace queen. So we flop top 2 pair. Definitely not getting him off there. I think we played that fine. I know I mentioned in the previous vlog that the bluffing was going to stop, but I really meant it's on like a slow downtrend to where we're just playing super solid, consistent poker. This is going to be a little bit of street poker this hand, not going to lie. I'm on the button straddle, and I look down at ace-4 offsuit. Under the gun opens to 15, and John, the guy from the pocket 10s hand, calls on the hijack. And I also put in the $10 in call. The flop is 2, 3, 2, so we flop a gutter. The under the gun continues, and I'm not gonna lie, stereotypes in poker, sometimes I abide by them. This guy's really old, like really old, and he continues for 15, and he opened from under the gun. I don't think this is ace king. I think this is an overpair. John in the hijack calls, and that prices me in to chase our gutter. The turn is the king of diamonds. The under the gun now checks. Now I'm weighting him more towards queens, jacks, 10s, that kind of thing. The hijack checks. And when it's on me, I see an opportunity to steal the pot, and if a spade comes on the turn, I can bet big and try to get everyone off it. I bet out for 35. The under the gun folds, which is great. And now the hijack check raises to 75. This is the 2nd time in 2 hands. I'm really sick of this. I just don't get check raised very often. And if he had a strong hand after the under the gun gives up the betting lead, why is he now checking the turn, hoping that I lead out after they both check? It just is very risky because I'm going to check back a lot of the time if I've got a spade draw. It just doesn't make any sense. Again, though, I can get behind a fold here. It's a decent size raise into not a massive pot. But this guy seems kind of wild. I think I'm going to call and evaluate rivers and maybe bluff on spades. So I call. In the moment I call, he goes, "Oh, I guess you got a 2, huh?" And this is not the kind of guy that is saying that in a bluffy sense. I get the vibe that he's being pretty straightforward. He really thinks I have a 2. So the river is the 4 of spades. He snap checks it to me, which is a great sign. And I think this is obviously a great card to bluff on. And when I run massive bluffs like this, I often I hem and I ha, and I go, "Oh, I guess if you got it, you got it." And I stick it in. This time when the flush hit, he was like, "Oh, you're Hollywooding, huh? Yeah, keep going. I know you have a 2. And I basically asked him, "Oh, I guess if you have a flush, you have a flush, man." So, at the end of the day, it's night. And I've got $127 with ace high. I'm going to stick it in. And he folds. So we get that one through. Pretty happy with that. Again, do you need to be bluffing at 1-2 that often to be profitable? Again, please, you just don't need to. You really don't, but that one works out. The literal next shuffle, we look down at pocket eights in late position. It folds or limps to me, and I open it up to 12, and our only caller is our buddy John from the last hand. The flop is 9 ace ace, and when he checks to me, this is a board that obviously hits my range, and we likely have the best hand a majority of the time, so this should definitely be a bet to protect from other overcards, but in real time, I actually check back. The turn is a 6, and now he leads into me for 10. This guy, as I've seen, is kind of crazy, and, you know, I just bluffed him, so maybe he's in the mood to bluff me, so I think I'm going to go ahead and call and evaluate rivers. The river is a 2, and now he bets out for 35. I don't think this is a 9. A 9's probably betting smaller or checking back, so he's basically telling me he has an ace or nothing. And in my mind, at real time, I was like, I just bluffed him. Surely he wants to bluff me back. So I end up putting in a pretty bad call, and he shows me ace-3 offsuit. So, you know, we move on from that one. This next hand gets pretty wild. I've got queen-6 from the big blind. There's a button straddle, and at the fort, when there's a button straddle, it's last action. So he gets ultimate last. It's John. He acts after everybody. I call the 5. A bunch of people do. And when it gets to him, he raises to 20. I call, 4 other people call. So we're 6 ways to a flop with $120 already in of ace, ace, 10. It checks to John on the button, the pre-flop raiser, and he continues for 20. Now, he's basically saying he has an ace, and I, you know, don't have an ace, but what I do have is a set of balls. So I'm going to try to steal this pot on the turn if everyone else folds. So I'm just going to call here because it's 20 to win 160 if I call. So if no one has an ace and they all fold, I can steal this. Everyone else does fold after I call, so that's great. The turn is a king, giving me a gutter, so I have some equity in case I get called. I'm going to try to go for somewhat of a cheap bluff here. I bet out into him heads up for 55. He ends up tanking and says someone had to have it, and he shows king 10 as he folds. So we got him off 2 pair, which is a big win, even though he's right. He's dead to an ace, basically. I show him the queen 6, and we win another hand. You know how I mentioned at the beginning of the vlog that I'm going to get in pre-flop for heaps of dollars multiple times? This is the beginning of that. I'm on the button, and I look down at ace-king. And remember, at the fort, the button straddle gets ultimate last action, so I act after everyone. The low jack opens to 10, and the big blind calls. Now, the significance of the big blind calling is that almost always caps him at a very weak to mid hand, because he's the last person to act before I do, and the likelihood of me raising is not super big, right? I could easily just call or fold that $10. I 3-bet to 40. I know it might be a little small, but the open one is 10, so it's smaller. The big blind decides not to fold or call. He goes all in for $189. I did not see that coming. The low jack also just goes into the tank. This dude tanked for like 5 minutes, and he didn't have that much behind, so I was like, dude, just fold or call. Eventually, he folds, thank God, and it's on me, and honestly, I probably should have snap called, but I was very surprised to see the jam from the big blind, so it took me a second. But eventually, obviously, I call because at worst we're flipping, and I really doubt that. So maybe he's got a pocket pair or something. I go ahead and record the board, and this is what happens. Queen. Oh, club.
Right. Oh. Ace-side gets you there. Queen. Oh, it's the club.
Yeah, he shows queen 3 of clubs, so he was clearly making a move. He turns a flush, and I actually had outs because I had the ace of clubs. That was absolutely crazy. Really sucky to lose that because we lost about $189 in there, getting it in as a favorite. But, you know, we take that every day, so it happens. The very next shuffle, we get king jack of clubs from the cutoff. John is in the low jack. It opens to 15. I'm kind of tilted, and this is a guy that's not opening crazy tight, so I think a 3-bet is in order. I 3-bet him to 50, and only he calls. The flop is queen 9-5, all clubs. We flop the second nuts. He checks to me, and this is a guy, again, I really want to let him catch up, hit a pair, you know, he'll pay me off, so I'm going to check back. The turn is the 9 of hearts. Now, any 9, any queen, I think would definitely call a reasonable size bet. He ends up checking to me, and this is a mistake I make sometimes, is when I check flops with monsters, I tend to overbet turns and rivers just because I feel it looks bluffy. But when he checks twice, he probably doesn't have anything. So I make a mistake here, and I bet out for 70, which is only, you know, it's not full pot, but it's close. He ends up folding, claiming he doesn't have a club. So that's a real shame, but always nice to flop a second nuts. Boy, this next hand was really wild. We win a huge pot for no reason at all. But remember, at this point, I've showed a couple massive bluffs, ace-4 offsuit, queen-6 off. I showed both of those, so the whole table probably thinks I'm pretty loose. I'm definitely capable. I open ace-10 to 20, which, you know, that is pretty loose. I end up getting 3 callers, so we're 4 ways to a flop of 7, 8, 9. So we flop an open ender. But John leads in everyone for 35. There's a call in front of me. I don't think there's any point in raising. I'm getting a great price. So I call, and the guy on my left also calls. So we're still 4 ways to a turn of the jack of hearts. So we make our straight. This time it checks to me, and there's 2 pairs to get value from. There's pairs and draws. There's so many hands we can get value from. So I bet 50, and only the guy on my left calls. The river is a 6 of clubs, so a great card. I have about 168 in my stack. I think there's only one move here. I jam all in. And the guy on my left sticks in the call. I flip over my cards going, oh, I guess we chomp, huh? Because I assume he has a 10. He shows queen jack of spades. I could not believe that's what he showed. I understand, all right, I raise, so I don't have a lot of 10s in my range. I'm bluffy. But, I mean, that was crazy. And I don't know about you guys. If I hero called there with queen jack, I am mucking and telling you I had a set. There is no shot I'm showing that hand. I cannot believe we got called. But we win an absolutely massive pot there. I then get pocket 8s from the low jack again. I open it up to 15, and under the gun is the only caller. He is a short stack. He has less than $100. The flop is 8-3-5. We flop the nuts. He checks to me, and we probably have a hammer lock on this hand. I'm going to check behind. The turn is a 7, introducing some straights. He bets into me for 25, and he really just doesn't have that much behind, so I don't think there's a big point into raising. I mean, maybe he's got a draw, and I want to get him in now. I'm just going to let him keep bluffing into me when I have top set here, so I just call. The river is a 10 of hearts, introducing some straights, and he jams all in for 40. I'm not folding a set here. This is the top of my range. I snap call, and he shows 9-10. So we had an open under on the turn. Would he have called a raised? Maybe. But I'm still happy to win this one. Won a decent-sized pot. We now get into the absolutely most crazy hand of the session. I look down at pocket queens from the small blind. The low jack raises to 20. The hijack calls, and I 3-bet to 80. The low jack now jams for 300. I end up calling, and this is what happens.
I got
Oh!
same hand. There's no way we win.
Can we go twice?
I only go once. You're ahead, obviously. I've got queens.
You know, I want to play it for the night.
This is just rivet.
That's fun.
Get you some! Oh, damn!
Oh my god.
Yeah, he asked me to run it twice, but guys, one thing, people ask me, what's your competitive advantage? Well, I only run it once, so if you're looking for someone that there's no chopping, none of that crap, I only run it once. He showed me aces, and I still said we're running it once, so yeah. Cannot believe I flopped a boat. That's absolutely insane. I didn't see that because I was like lifting my camera up as it happened, so I heard the reaction. Wow, I cannot believe that happened. The guy was not happy I didn't run it twice, but you know, I mean, hey, he got his money in good. But yeah, that was an insane hand. Really happy to win that one. Did you think I was done getting in a pre-flop for a ton of money? Well, I'm not. I don't know why I'm late to recording on this one, but clearly I am. The +2 opened to 15, which is a guy stacked with aces, and then John in the low jack calls. I 3-bet to 50. The +2 calls, and then John has just had enough, and he jams all in for around 200. I re-jam, getting the +2 to fold, and we're off to a run out, and John shows king 8 of clubs, so again, we're in good shape. So let's see another run out, all in for $450 in pre-flop.
Oh, that hits pretty well. Give me a 10.
Just want to get in a little bit of theory about that hand pre-flop, about why I did what I did. You shouldn't really be going and trying to get 100 big blinds in with ace-queen suited pre-flop, but when John just calls a low jack, that caps him, and when the low jack just calls my 3-bet, it caps him. So I had full liberty to jam after John jammed. So I'm really happy with what I did there, got it in good, and we luckily held. Before we move into our last real hand, here's what the stack is looking like. You'll love to see it. We look down at pocket kings from the small blind. That is a good sign. The cutoff opens to 15. I go ahead and 3-bet to 40. And now the big blind cold calls my 40. And John, who was the original raiser, calls as well. The flop is 8-5-9 with 2 clubs. I c-bet for 35. And now the big blind, who's the guy that called with the gutter hand where I had a 10, he called with queen jack of spades, raises to 85. He's got a lot. We're pretty deep, and I thought about just raising or ripping it in here. But I really want to get in on this board with straights and sets? Because when he cold calls my 3-bet, that's a really big sign if he has a pocket pair. So I think I'm going to tread cautiously and just call. The turn is the king of clubs, so we make a top set. I don't know how I feel because now any flush draw gets there. I'm going to check and flow and see what he does. He checks behind. So now I'm praying for anything but a club so I can lead into him. The river is the queen of clubs. So there's a one-liner to any club. Now, I guess that I would have more clubs in my range than him, but I don't know if I want to be betting here. Nowadays, present me, I've actually kind of been thinking about putting in some more cheap bluffs on 4 of a certain suit kind of board, because people, if they don't have one, they just fold a lot. So I probably, in real time, should put in a small bet here, 5th, 6th, 7th of the pot, and try to just take it down, but I end up checking. He checks behind, and he shows pocket 6s with a club. Honestly, a really good raise in the flop. Pocket 6s, I mean, he's got a gutter. He definitely was in the range of having a set, so really well played by him. And kind of sucky that the club hit on the turn, but, you know, whatever. We move on. That session was really crazy. Tons of action. We actually had to top up once, so we were in for 400, out for 1,220 in just 3 hours of play. If you guys enjoyed this, as I said, please leave a sub. Always helps the channel, and my next video is coming out Wednesday at 1 Eastern, 12 Central. So, yeah, appreciate it. chpoker, out.